So we're going on our next session. We'll hear about two very interesting examples. One in Mexico, that is new development, and one in the UK, that is kind of a really new development. Anyway, so our next speaker is Moreno from CONEVAL, and she will talk about the new panel survey for monitoring social deprivation. So you have 10 minutes, including questions. Okay? Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to thank again Alfonso for the invitation. Also, I feel kind of out of place with so many real experts in the field. I'm going to try to do my best to explain our first step for the CONEVAL to have some longitudinal data. So I'm going to divide my presentation in 4 parts. First, I'm going to talk about some what we do in CONEVAL, how we measure poverty. Then I'm going to talk about how we designed this study of longitudinal data to measure the 6 social deprivations that we use to measure poverty in Mexico. And then after I explain how the sample was taken, I'm going to talk about some of the main results we have until now. And finally some conclusions of the study. So, what are the main features of the new methodology? It's called new methodology, but it's actually been there since 2008. By law, we require to measure poverty in a multidimensional way. This means that we have as features two dimensions. Here we have the well-being dimension that is measured through current income per capita. The social rights dimension that is measured through social deprivations. These deprivations are attached to certain social rights that we have to measure by the social development law. These social rights are education, health, social security, housing, basic services, and of the dwelling and food access. And finally, there's also, it also says in this law that we need to measure the degree of social cohesion. This is made in a territorial way because it's not possible to measure for each individual with the data we have, the degree of social cohesion. These two spaces, well-being and social rights, are measured for each individual in the whole population. So, when do we say someone is poor? Well, here we have the well-being dimension, and we measure, as I said, through income. And we have the economic well-being line. This is like a poverty line, and it's the value of the food and non-food basket here in Mexico. Also, we have the space of deprivations. Here we have 0 deprivations, 1, 2, 3, 4 until 6. So we're going to say that a person is poor when they are here. This means that their income is below the economic well-being line, and also that that person has at least 1 deprivation. So we also establish this group, which is the extreme poverty group, This group has different thresholds. The threshold is in the income dimension, is the minimum economic well-being line. This minimum economic well-being line is the value of the food basket, and the threshold in the deprivation space is three or more deprivation. So when someone is in extreme poverty, this means that their income is below the minimum economic well-being line and that has 3 or more deprivations. Also, we have these other spaces here, as you can see. We have vulnerable due to social deprivations, which means that a person has an income above the economic well-being line, but has at least one deprivation. The vulnerable due to income, that means that a person has 0 deprivations, but an income below the economic well-being line. And finally, the non-poor and non-vulnerable, who have no deprivations and an income above the economic well-being line. Finally, we have this group, which are those poor who are not in extreme poverty. We call them the moderate poverty. The sum of this both is the total poverty of the country. So, all of these things I talked about is done with cross-sectional data. So we wanted to make a panel survey for monitoring the 6 social deprivations. Why only the 6 social deprivations? Well, because it's easier. You need a way smaller questionnaire, and in order to measure income, you would need to have like a really big questionnaire. We couldn't afford that. So what was the objective? As I said, monitor the 6 social deprivations used to measure poverty in a sample of the population attended by CEDESOL, and also getting information about the social programs received by this population through time. I'm going to explain how we are meant to do this. First, let me talk to you a little about the social policy that's right now in Mexico. So, CEDESOL started a national strategy. It's called, I guess the translation would be National Strategy Against Hunger, which is the Cruzada Nacional contra el Hambre. And it started to focus in 400 municipalities. These municipalities have the characteristic that they have the highest percentage and highest number of people in extreme poverty and food deprivation. So, of course, not everyone living in these 400 municipalities are in extreme poverty and food access deprivation. That would be this group. So, on the other hand, CEDESOL has also this instrument called quiz. It's a questionnaire that has some relevant variables in order to measure the 6 social deprivations. We could use a quiz to measure them. So in these 400, and also the quiz is used to be able to know if certain persons would be beneficiaries of social programs. So using this information that was already there, that CEDESOL had, we decided to take our target population from here. So we would have those households with some member in extreme poverty and food access deprivation, EPFD, who benefit from social programs in the 400 municipalities. So that was our target population. And we already had this data from the quiz. Also, on the other hand, when we establish our sample size, we had the 2013 quiz, 2014 quiz. We used these 2 years because it's about the time when the national strategy began. And we wanted at first to look at only social programs that were in this strategy. So, and also, this is very important, we have the CIFORE. the CIFODE has information about social programs. And the good thing about this is that these are administrative records, but also that CEDESOL was working, actually has already done that, to have a unique ID so that we can link information from the quiz to the CIFODE. So with this, we would have socio-demographic information from the questionnaire, but also information about the social programs that people were receiving. So we made, with all this information, we made our sample for 2015. As I said, well, the sample is households with some member in BFD who benefit from some social program and located in the 400 municipalities. Our target population was around 200,000 households, and the sample size was of 8,000 households. So the field work was in early July, and our first analysis of the database was published in August 2015. I like to remind you that all these, that the document with some of these findings, and also the database is public, and you can download both of them from our website. Okay, so some results. What we first aimed to analyze was the social deprivations, first using both databases as cross-sectional data. I mean the quiz and CIFODE, and also on the other hand our sample. Then, since we in the sample we had also the unique ID, so we could join these two databases and have longitudinal data. So we would have data from the period of 2013 to 2015. And also some relevant comparatives about locality size, indigenous population, sex, and age. And finally, the CIFODE information, which are social programs, and also to establish a relationship with food access deprivation. So here we have the social deprivations using cross-sectional data. As you can see, all of them drop, which is pretty obvious because of the type of sample we have. We only went to households who are beneficiaries of some social program. You can see that the main drops are here in health, from 32.9 to 9.2, and of course food access from 100 to 42.5. As I said, we took households with at least one person in extreme poverty and food access deprivation, and you may wonder why is this number 100% if it was at least 1%. But the thing is that food access is measured at a household level, so if one person in the household has food access deprivation, then the whole household has food access deprivation. That's why this number is 100. And now we have using the panel. This is after we merge both databases and using only those registers that were in both in both years. So we have the numbers are pretty much the same. Also, the main drops are in health and of course in food access. Here, I don't know if you can tell the little numbers, but we have some population groups. I'm not analyze every one of them because of time, but you can see the one interesting thing that happened here is that in food access deprivation, almost every single group didn't vary. It was from 40% to 46% in 2015, which is something we didn't expect because of how heterogeneous are these population groups. And here, well, this is for me the best part of the analysis we've done so far. These are kind of transition matrices, and we've done one for each of the deprivation. These are the changes in each deprivation. In this case, we have education. And so we can see who went from 2013, 2014 non-deprived to deprived in 2015 and so on. We can see here that those who were deprived and then are not deprived in 2015 is 11.8 in the case of education. But something that really caught our attention when we were doing this was actually this number, because we didn't expect it to be this high. So when we started analyzing the data, and the reason this 8.4 went from non-deprived to deprived in education, we realized that it was because of how we measure educational gap. So I'm going to tell you a little about this. We measure educational gap in different ways for adults and for minors. So in the case of adults, depending on the year they were born, the basic education that we consider as a threshold is the elementary or secondary education. But in the case of minors, if they have not finished their basic education, then they have to be attending school. And the reason why this percentage was a little high was that there were minors dropping out of school from this year to 2015. Well, between 2013 and 2014. Also, in the case of health, we here have a smaller percentage of persons who went from non-deprived to deprived. The big change is here. We can see that from deprived to non-deprived, it was 25.4%, which is a lot. This small percent may be due to people not reporting they were affiliated to some health institution, or maybe they lost their job, they couldn't be affiliated anymore. The same thing happens in Social Security, also from deprived to non-deprived, it's 11.1. This is a big percentage here, 86.3. That stayed deprived. Actually, when you analyze cross-sectional data from past years, you can see that one of the main concerns in terms of social deprivations is actually Social Security, which has a big percentage of people not having Social Security. And then quality and spaces of the dwelling. This is some important case also. And the reason is this number, no? It's also quite big. So when we analyzed what was happening here, this was a little bit weirder because we were like, well, but if you had quality material of floors in 2014 and then you don't report it in 2015, that's kind of weird. That's something that may not change through times. But it's also the reason is the way we measure it. For measuring quality and spaces of the dwelling deprivation, we use four indicators, which are materials of floors, walls, and ceilings, and the reason of persons per room. So what happened here was actually that all these households that passed from non-deprived to deprived, here I'm talking about households because this is one of the indicators that we measure in a household level, were households that had more members in 2015 than they had in 2014. So the reason of persons per room got bigger, and they went from non-deprived to deprived in that particular indicator, which is the reason of persons per room. But if you are deprived in one of the four, then you are deprived in the whole space of quality and spaces of the dwelling. So that's what happened here. Then we have basic services of the dwelling, which is pretty much, we also have four indicators here, and if you are deprived in one of them, then you are deprived in the whole indicator of basic services. Here we couldn't establish just one cause of the several services because it's way easier to get no service of water or electricity, just paying or something like that. And finally, we have the change in food access deprivation. As I showed before, we had 100% who were deprived, and from that passed from deprived to non-deprived, it was 57.3%. This may seem like a really extraordinary number, but we need to remember that the sample was only of beneficiaries of the national strategy against food hunger, so maybe it's not that good. It should be 100%. And finally, using all these administration, this information we had from that before, we were able to establish, in this case it's only for, in the case of food access deprivation, those who stopped being deprived in 2015. Here we have the social programs that they reported to have. Well, actually not they, but in Cifode. So we have that Seguro Popular was 46.5%, Prospera Oportunidades 24.5%, Programa de Apoyo Alimentario 10.8%, Liconza 9.5%, and the group of others, Charlotte, 11.2%. These won't add up to 100 because the programs are not exclusive. And we are working in actually having a more in-depth representation of the CIFODE information and to cross it with what we obtained from the panel survey. And finally, well, my conclusions of the study. We need to implement this kind of analysis in order to know the effect social policy has and the changes a certain group of population suffered through time. We realize this is important and kind of adapting a little what Lucinda talked yesterday about causes and symptoms to the Mexican case. I want to talk about a little, I like to rephrase this as symptoms and cures. We already have the symptom, it's poverty and social deprivations, and we tend to believe that the cure is only and exclusively social programs. But we do not, the symptom we can see with the cross-sectional data, and we tend to believe that social programs would be the cure, but we do not have enough longitudinal data to know that. And that's why I like the example about quality and spaces of the dwelling, because in this case where you have persons who went from non-deprived to deprived in 2015, perhaps you could say that housing policy is actually working, but it was a problem of family dynamics or employment or something like that. So we really need to assume in this type of problems to establish these relationships. And also, well, there are many challenges we faced with this study because of the loss of information. I didn't mention it because I wanted to mention it till the end. We had, the follow-up was about 70%, and we thought it would be higher because we thought our population was captive, but they weren't. And also, I cannot stress this enough, we need to be very, very cautious in interpretation of this data because this is not representative of the whole population living in the 400 municipalities attended by CEDESOL. And well, this is a really nice way to complement the cross-sectional data we already have, but we cannot make inference to the whole population with this particular study. And that would be all.
Thank you very much. I have time probably for one question. It has to be a question. Yes, Petra.
I was wondering why you conditioned the initial analysis on having to be poor. You know, because there are going to be some people that were not poor in the first time period, and then they become poor, and they're not going to be seen at all. So, was it out of concern that there weren't enough poor people in the first round, or because you could, as opposed to a random?
Yeah. Well, actually, yeah, it was a problem of not having enough information about non-poor people, because since our framework was the information that CEDESOL gave us, and they mostly work with non-poor households, they had a lot of information about this, but not about the other part. And also, we only wanted to center our attention right now with this study and on how social programs are helping or not people who live in extreme poverty and food deprivation, which was the target population of the national strategy against hunger.
Yes, another question there, please.
Could you tell us a little bit more about how the 400 municipalities were selected?
Oh, yeah, well, they were selected by CEDESOL, but what I know is that they use the information that CONEVAL has. CONEVAL has information on the municipality level about for 2012 and 10, sorry. And this information was used by CEDESOL, and they selected a group, I think it was about half and half, half with the high percentages of extreme poverty and food access deprivation, the other half who had persons in this condition.
Lucinda?
Thank you. It's really a point related to Petra's, because of how you selected your sample, because it looked like you had people in extreme poverty who weren't recipients of the social programs, and yet you didn't sample them. But they will have a lot of dynamics as well, and so you can only look at what the social programs are doing if you include them in your sample. So I was very surprised that you selected conditionally, because you can't tell anything about what social programs do if all your sample is recipients of them. Seems.
Yeah, I know. It seems weird that we made that decision, but we actually had to begin with only this information we had. So what we tried to do was to save us like the baseline survey with the information we already have from CIFODE and WITH, so that would be our baseline, and then follow up only those households. Oh, what picture?
Lots of red dots who didn't and have a corresponding blue dots.
Oh.
Or why we didn't include those red dots without a blue dot in the sample. Does that make more sense?
This?
Yes.
Okay. No, not really. Well, I'm going to try to explain. So
why didn't you include these other red dots?
why we chose these? These red dots?
No, the 2013-14 column.
Uh-huh. Ah, okay, yeah, I get it. Why these red dots and not these?
Yes.
Okay, maybe it's about how the graph is made, but these that are paired are actually individuals or households from which we have both quiz and CIFODE. Because there are some households that have quiz but not CIFODE information because they weren't beneficiaries.
But you want to include them, that was my point. Sorry, I mean, go on.
Thank you. Quite useful, Lucinda. Thank you very much. The time is up, and our next speaker is yes. Thank you, Marta. That was a wonderful presentation. Our next speaker is Lisa Calderwood from CLS. She will talk about next steps, which she will tell you. Yeah. Thank you, Lisa. Have an hour.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Alfonso. Thank you for the invite to be here. The study. Fascinating couple of days, so I've enjoyed being here. Thank you. So my name is Lisa Calderwood. I work at the Centre for Longitudinal Studies, which is a sort of research centre in London, which is part of University College de Londres. And at the Centre for Longitudinal Studies, we actually have 4 cohort studies, 4 national cohort studies, which we kind of look after and manage. And I'm going to tell you about one of them today, which is called Next Steps, which I'm the principal investigator for. So yeah, Next Steps is it's a national study, so it's a big national study. It follows the lives of 60,000 people who were born in England in 1989 and 1990, so they were born across the school year. It's nationally representative of England only, so it's not a UK study, it's national study. So it began back in 2004, and the study members were actually recruited when they were aged 13, 14, so it was a cohort where they were recruited later on in childhood rather than at birth. So they were aged 13, 14, and they were sampled through their schools. So there were about 650 schools in total in England, and it covered all the different types of school sector. So it had good kind of population coverage. So the reason it started in age 13, 14 was because that was a kind of key age at which young people make educational decisions around what subjects to go on to study. And they were actually followed up quite intensively throughout their rest of their throughout adolescence and into young adulthood. So they were surveyed annually between 2010 up until 2010 when they were aged 19 to 20. So there were annual surveys up until age 19 to 20. And it was funded and managed by the Department of Education. The reason they set up this study was because they were really interested in looking at educational transitions in this critical period, 14 to 19 period. So as I said, 13 to 14 is the school year at which young people make decisions about which subjects they want to carry on to study until age 16. Age 16 is the end of the compulsory schooling in England. And at that point, there were kind of young people kind of take divergent paths. So some people will stay on in school and do what we call A-levels up until age 18 and perhaps go to university. Others will leave school at 16 and perhaps they'll get a job or perhaps they'll go into apprenticeship. So there was quite a lot of there was a lot of policy interest in sort of determinant factors affecting these educational transitions and also the impact of the educational transitions later on. So that was why the study was set up, and it was very much used by the Department of Education during this period, and I'll go on to tell you a bit more about some of the policy impacts it had. But the kind of unfortunate thing was that once they got to age 1920, that was kind of when they were outside the remit, the policy remit of the Department of Education. So the Department of Education, having set up this study, once they got to age 1920, they were sort of no longer able to kind of continue to fund the study into follow up the young people into adulthood. But very fortunately for us, or fortunately for the research and policy community in the UK, we've recently been able to get some funding to restart the study. So the study's recently undergone this kind of transition from being a government-run study to being now an academically run study. So we, the Centre for Longitudinal Studies, now manage the study. We was able to secure funding from the Government Social Research Council, which is the major funder of academic research in the UK, and it's the major funder of the longitudinal resources, data resources in the UK. So they were able to kind of give us some funding to restart the study after this dormant period. And so we're currently surveying them again at age 25. And we've just started, so it says currently in Feb, but we've actually recently started the data collection, so, and that will continue until the middle of next year. So to kind of reflect this change from being a government study to an academic study, we also to kind of monitor the content of the study at age 25 and to reflect to make it a more multidisciplinary study and the content being driven by kind of academic or research questions rather than policy questions. And we really hope to continue the study into adulthood every 3 to 5 years, but at the moment we've only got funding to do this one survey. The study was previously called the Longitudinal Study of Young People in England, or LSYP, and we've now called it Next Steps, because the Department of Education actually set up another study called Longitudinal Study of Young People in England too, so we decided to give it a new name to try a new sort of identity. And actually Next Steps is the name that the participants always knew it by, so it's participant facing it. So we're now trying to promote the name Next Steps. We want to be academic research community and policy research community and tell them to stop calling it LSYP, which is proving quite difficult to do. There we go. So just to go on to tell you a little bit more about why wasn't the ESRC, the Social Research Council, gave us this additional funding. So why is the study so important? Why should we continue to follow up into adulthood? So, as the Centre kind of talked about yesterday, we've got a sort of tradition of carrying a long tradition of carrying out cohort studies in the UK. The earliest study started in 1946, and at the Centre for Longitudinal Studies, we're responsible for three birth parent studies, one which started in 1958, one which started in 1970, and one which started in the year 2000, which is the Millennium Study. So I'll just kind of briefly just go through these very quickly. So again, the National Child Development Study started in 1958, ECS 70 in 1970, and the Millennium Study. So obviously you can see that there's a kind of gap between a 30-year gap between the start of the British cohort study in 1970 and the beginning of the Millennium cohort study in 2000. So Next Steps kind of neatly fill this gap. As we've got our cohorts born in 1990, so they fill this kind of 30-year gap in this kind of time series. So that's really the main reason that they wanted to kind of restart the study. But of course, as I said, our cohort were not actually followed from birth, they were followed from age 14. So why is it important? So yeah, they were born in the early 90s, but the missing cohorts that we really need to kind of, by following them up, we can complete this kind of picture of the different generations and we're able to compare this generation with other generations. But this age group are very important in their own right. So there are unique, and they've experienced kind of unique challenges. So they were born during their childhood, they were exposed to digital media, digital natives that have grown up in an internet society. They've also experienced big changes, so the global war on terror broke out during their lifetime. So they've had very particular experiences, and also when the time in which they were entering the labour market, which coincided with the Great Depression and with the recession in 2008. So they were entering the labour market at a time of huge economic downturn. So it's really important to see how that is impacting on their chances in the job market more generally in their lives. So it is the only national longitudinal study focusing on teenage years in adolescentes en transición hacia la adulta y tal vez está utilizando de manera extensiva para algunas políticas, solamente para darles una idea del impacto de las políticas y cómo ha hecho la diferencia ya. Raising participation age in formal education and training, so actually as I'm beginning at the end of compulsory schooling with age 16, but actually because of evidence from Next Steps, it showed that people who tend to drop out of school right at age 16 were actually more vulnerable and low skilled, and actually they're the ones that need to go on education longer to get on in the labour market. So because of evidence from Next Steps, there's actually been a recent change in government policy so that young people now have to stay on in some form of educational training until they're 18. So that was a direct policy impact. There's also quite a lot of research on the vocational qualifications, so those young people who go on to study vocational courses rather than academic courses. There was a review which showed that actually the types of vocational courses that they were doing were not necessarily equipping them with the skills that they needed for the labour market. So that has led to a lot of policy interest in terms of improving vocational education. The next one is setting up the education maintenance allowance. So this is again, there was evidence from Next Step showing that most 25 young people from gentrified backgrounds will likely to drop out of school at 16, so the government set up a scheme called Education Maintenance Allowance, which paid for things like books and travel and equipment for young people to allow them to stay on in education and visit. Bullying is the next one, so there was questions on bullying which showed that around half of the cohort actually experienced bullying during the school years. And there was a lot of concern about this, which has led to improvement strategies around bullying in schools and how to reduce that. So actually the evidence from the next cohort actually shows that young people today are much less likely to be bullied at school. And again, that's probably back to the policy that influenced that was based on evidence from Next Step. Actually this week it's been Anti-Bullying Week in the UK, so and we actually released some new findings for Anti-Bullying Week using the Next Steps data, which was looking at sexual minorities' risk of being bullied. So this is young people who identified as lesbian, gay, and bisexual. So the new research that we released this week shows that they were at greater risk of experiencing bullying when between ages 14 and 16, and also at age 20. That's been getting quite a bit of media attention back home this week, which is good. Okay, so a bit more about what the data actually includes. So, yeah, this chart just shows the sort of timeline for the study. So the study member themselves has been surveyed every week. The first 4 surveys were face-to-face surveys where we actually visited them in their home. Parents were interviewed as well, so that gave us quite rich data about the parents, parenting, and also the basic circumstances of the household. It was linked to the National Pupil Database, which gave us information about the school that the young person was at, but also their performance on key assessments. and also their examination results. And the sample sizes are on the bottom, so you can see that the wave-on-wave response rates are actually quite high, but the sample size has actually dropped quite substantially, pretty much half, in the first 7 waves. And this is because they actually, if somebody didn't take part in one survey, they weren't actually reapproached for the next survey, which was a big shame. So when we kind of won our kind of the contract to carry out the next wave at age 25, we were very keen to go back to everybody who's ever taken part in the study. So we're now going to try and contact everybody who's ever taken part. And the age 25 survey is just with the study member themselves, and also we're also trying to get a wide range of data linkage consents. I should also say that the first 4 waves of the study were face-to-face, and the last 3 waves were sequential mixed mode, so they were invited to take part on the web first, then telephone, and then face-to-face. And the age 25 survey is also going to be sequential mixed mode study. So just a little bit, so this chart just covers a very broad level the kind of content in the study. As I said, it was quite focused on education, and but having said that, there are some health measures and things as well. But we've tried to expand that quite a lot in the age 25 survey. So just tell you quickly a bit more about the age 25 survey. So these are some of the kind of research questions that we're interested in. So how has this generation experienced the global recession, and in particular how they're getting on in the labour market. There's a lot of concern about things like underemployment, so graduates not being able to get onto a career ladder and actually having to take kind of minimum wage or low wage jobs because they're not able to actually get jobs which fully utilise their kind of educational qualifications. And also there's a concern about kind of exploitation of young people in the labour market, like things like 0 hours contracts where they're not guaranteed any particular number of hours work. So the other ones I've got here are mental health and obesity, so those are the 2 big public health concerns, particularly pertinent for this age group of this generation. I've already mentioned skills acquisition, in relation to in particular in relation to vocational training. So there's concern about whether the young people today have got the right skills in the labour market. And actually, the UK on kind of international surveys, the OECD international surveys like PIAN actually show that the young people in the UK are actually not that well equipped in terms of skills. And of course, inequalities is an ongoing concern. So the study's already shown that there are kind of social differences and other differences between people in terms of their educational performance up to age 19-20. So we want to look at whether that's persisted on into adult life or early adult life. So this is just shows the topics we've got in our age 25 survey. So yeah, it's a 45-minute interview. It's a web survey followed by telephone and then face-to-face visit. So we're asking about household formation, relationships, and fertility, and in particular any kind of cohabiting relationships that they've been in since they're age 16. We're asking them about the housing situation. So again, there's a lot of concern about the housing costs, and the fact that young people are actually not able to kind of get on the housing ladder and afford their own house. We were initially hoping to have a kind of complete housing history everywhere that they've lived since age 16, but unfortunately that's not been possible because we included that in our pilot survey, but because there's a lot of house moves and housing transitions in this period, particularly certainly for those who've gone away to university and things like that. We're not able to collect a full housing history. We are going to have some summary measures of housing, of their housing careers or trajectories. We're collecting information on employment, income, education, and training, and we're also updating the kind of longitudinal history of their periods in employment and education since the last interview or since they turned 16. Questions on identity and participation, health and well-being, on data linkage consent. So we're asking for consent to link to 9 different government records in the areas of education, health, economics, and also criminal justice. And lastly, of course, we're collecting lots of contact information so that we can hopefully track them down in the future. So yeah, one of our big challenges has been with restarting the study after such a long dormant period has obviously been how we actually get hold of these people, how we locate them so able to take part. So we've been able to do some tracing through using administrative data, so we've been able to update their addresses from education records and also health records. At CLS we have a kind of cohort maintenance team who work on tracing and tracking on all of our studies, so they've been doing some office tracking using databases, phone directories and electoral roll directories as well. We've developed a participant engagement strategy, which I've got a couple of slides on to show you. So we've got our mixed mode design, where with our accompanying fieldwork protocols with reminders and things like that to encourage them to take part. We have an incentive, so and actually we have a differential incentive, so they get a higher rate incentive if they take part on the web in the first 3 weeks of the survey. So it's much cheaper for us if they do a web survey. So we actually pass on some of those kind of savings to them by offering them £20 if they do it on the web and £10 if they otherwise. We've invested quite a lot in interview training so that they're equipped to persuade them, and also because of the uncertainty with restarting the study after such a long dormant period, we are actually kind of testing where the initial fieldwork is just going to use 2,000 cases to give us a better estimate of the response rates and also the costs. So in terms of our participant engagement strategy, we've got a new brand, which I'll show you in the next slide. We've got a website for the participants. We do have Facebook and Twitter. We've got a video which is on the website explaining to them kind of why the study is important, what difference it's made and why it's continuing. We sent them a kind of participant pack or a kind of relaunch mailing to explain to them the fact that this study has been restarting on who we are and why it's important and why they should continue to take part. And also we developed kind of survey materials which we hope are engaging as well for them. So these are just some screenshots of some of our websites and our materials with the new brand. So this is the website for participants, which has got lots of information there about, as I said, how the study's already made a difference and the findings. And this is our advance letter and the leaflet that we sent to them. And this is just a quick timeline, just showing. It's been quite a while in the development of this study because we've had various kind of challenges along the way. But yeah, we finally went into the field in August this year, and we hope the data collection will be finished in May. And then we'll be releasing the data towards the end of next year or early 2017. The data from this study and from the age 25 survey, all of the previous waves and all of the other studies that we run are publicly available data, so they're available from the data service if anybody would like to use them. And I think that might be everything. Oh yeah, thanks to our funders at Host Institution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lisa. That was a fantastic presentation. I have time for a couple of questions. Yes, there is one there in the bottom.
Thank you, Lisa, for a fantastic presentation. I have a question for you. You said that you invest about 10 or 20 pounds in every EV to get them attached to the program.
Yeah, so they have, so they're given an incentive payment for taking part at age 25. So they get £10 if they take part by telephone or face to face, and £20 if they take part on the web.
And then you keep going now, 2015 this year, and then you're going to keep doing this resurvey every 2 years.
So we hope to go back to them every sort of 3 to 5 years, so probably around age 30 would be the next time we go back. At the moment, we've only got funding for this follow-up at age 25. But yeah, we're hoping to secure funding to follow them again, and into adulthood. Potentially until they. The other studies that we run are following people from the cradle to the grave. So we hope that this study will do the same.
Thank you. It's a fantastic presentation.
We have time for another question. We have a vote then. Lisa, you have a very nice health model. And in the UK, obesity has become also a major topic. I think it's a wide thing. But I wonder if you could tell us a bit how much evidence from the study has come out in terms of why or what are the determinants of people changes in lifestyle or things like that.
Yeah, so this study has not been that much used really to look at obesity because unlike some of the other cohort studies, we don't have direct measurements. So we have self-report. So it's not been so much used to look at obesity, but for example, the millennium cohort study has been used quite a lot to look at trends in obesity. So you have the direct measurements. So we only have the self-reports.
Okay. I have time for another one. Thank you very much, Lisa. I think this is really fantastic presentation. Okay, so we have a little break and then we come back for the final session that is kind of the what's next. How we look forward after this. So I think it's a 15 minutes break and then we conclude. Okay?
Sí, Moreno Pérez. Sí. Sí.